Hello and welcome to another episode of Marty's Matchbox Makeovers. In this episode I shall be doing a makeover on these two Bedford vans. So it's a 2-for-1. Now the blue one came out in 1956. It's the Dunlop No.25A Bedford van. The other one is a Bedford van also, but it's a different type and I'll show you why in a minute. It's actually the evening news van and it has some subtle differences about it, even though at a glance they look the same. So the blue one was the No.25A and the white one is the No.42A, which came out a year later in 1957. Dunlop, of course, was a well-known tyre manufacturer and probably still is, as is Hovis. Used to be a very popular brand of bread in England, and I believe that they also are still operating under that name. So let's have a quick look at this one here, the blue one, which is again the 1956 Dunlop Bedford van. Very simple model, only two parts really, the base and the body and the wheels. So more than two parts, but you know what I'm saying. Two main parts. Same with this homemade Hovis van. Somebody's made their own decals, I believe, and they've got a little Hovis loaf on the side of the van there. And this got rather chunky tyres compared to the other one. So the paint on this is particularly thick and grainy, and I mean it looks like it could have been painted with a spray can perhaps. Underneath is a very thick black coating on the base and the front screw is missing, so obviously it was pulled apart to clean. So I'm now going to pull this one apart. Standard practice as we start, just drill out that front rivet and pry the base off. Now this one took me by surprise. See how close that hole is to the front of the vehicle? Well, when I popped the base off, I noticed that there was a small cutaway in the front of it. Just disengaging that tab at the rear to remove the base. And there you can see what I'm talking about. Now, I thought I'd overcooked it and probably did that by being a little bit overzealous with the drill. However, when I put this back in to investigate what I did wrong, it turns out that this base would not fit into this model without that front millimetre or so being removed. So either it was a casting error and somebody at the factory fixed it, or for some reason, which I can't imagine why, somebody's taken the base off of another one and it wasn't suited to this model. Now they should all be the same, so it's all a little bit weird. Anyway, moving on to the other one now, the evening news van. That one came apart real easy. There was no screw in the front of it. Somebody else had already removed it. But that paint on the bottom, absolutely atrocious. Got to clean these up now with some paint strippers and get them looking new again. That's the plan. And I'm thinking of doing a special custom of my own on the Hovis one. I mean, I like the idea of the Hovis bread and I was going to reproduce it as a Hovis van, but I've decided something else might be appropriate. I'm going to cut these axles off because it's the quickest and easiest way to get them off, and I've got some spares anyway. They've got the crimped ends and they're very difficult to sort of round off and remove, so I've just protected the base from being scored with some feeler gauges there. It seemed to work okay. I've damaged the feeler gauges, but not the base. So that's the rear wheels off. Now I'm going to complete the task and remove the front ones in the same way. Tried to get a better angle there for you to see how it works. Alright, that's ready to go in for paint stripping. I'm going to save these wheels and reuse them, but those bits of axle there, they're no good to me. No point in keeping those. So clean up as you go, put them straight in the bin. As for the Dunlop van, these are factory fitted domed headed axles there. So I'm going to take the cutting disc out and put this little grinding barrel on. And with this I shall round off the axle so I can remove it from the model. But it also allows me to reuse it when I put it back together again. There you can see quite clearly that on the base it says number 25. And of course this was the number 25A. So this takes less than a minute to do, and so long as you're careful you won't damage the wheels. I'm just using the last of this can. I've had it for quite a while now, and I just thought, instead of trying to dip the brush in and just dab it on, I'll just saturate the model since there's two of them to go. Use plenty of paint stripper on that. Funnily enough, the paint stripper didn't affect the white homemade custom model as much as it did the standard Matchbox model. So this paint kind of resisted the paint stripper somewhat, although it was softened, and there's also sort of a dark burgundy red colour underneath that possibly could have been the colour of it before it was modified to the white, perhaps. As far as I know, none of these Bedford models came out in burgundy, so it could be somebody's painted it more than once. With the evening news van, you can see on the top there's a hole that's been filled. In actual fact, there's two holes that have been filled. We'll have a better look at those in a minute. Using this rotary wire brush, I'm just scuffing up the panels. We're really not scuffing them up, trying to burnish them, take some of the play wear out of it and prepare the model to receive the undercoat. It's good for getting out any paint remnants that might be remaining in the grille of the engine, the front end there. So looking at these two models side by side, they look absolutely identical from the front. From the top though, there is a difference. One of them's got the hole in the middle and over above the passenger seat. Looking at the back, I felt that maybe the doors were slightly wider on one of the models. But not too many differences at this stage. So just to keep myself on track here and focused, I'm making sure I know which one is which. This one here, the Bedford Evening News van, had a sign on the roof, but it's also got these panels on the doors that would hold the front page news as it was driving around the city delivering newspapers. Now, here's one that I've done in an earlier video, and it looks absolutely stunning. I do love the yellow paint and the red highlights in the decals. So this is what it was meant to look like originally. See how the sign is attached on the top? It's got a central hole through the roof and a peg above the passenger seat, which is on the left in England, that prevents helps you get the sign in and the correct orientation, I guess you could say. So the bases are very, very similar too, just different wording and a different number stamped on them. I'm just test fitting the one that had the broken piece, the piece cut out from the front of it into the other van to see how it fits. And then I noticed that the actual rivet posts are located in slightly different positions. So the evening news van had a bent centre pillar on the windscreen, and I tried to straighten it out, and of course it snapped off. These things happen, so I'm going to have a go at fixing it, and it's very fiddly. I've already dropped this piece on the floor once already, and if I do it again I don't think I'm going to be able to find it a second time. It's very, very small and tends to ping out of the tweezers. So I'm fixing it with an old tried and tested method that I've used in the past, and I'm sure other people have adopted it too, where I'm going to use some super glue and baking soda. To help me align the central pillar accurately, I've prepared the model with a piece of masking tape onto which I can lay the part that I'm trying to glue into position. This allows me to be very fussy and tease it around into position until I'm happy. Without the tape, obviously this would be impossible. I'm trying to drop the smallest amount of super glue possible there, but it does come out pretty quick because this is the very thin, sort of light grade super glue from Starbond. Very watery product. I just wanted one drop, but one drop seems to go a very long way. And I've got the baking powder in that little puffer bottle there so that I can dispense a very small amount at a time without oversaturating the area. Well, having said that, it looks pretty messed up at the moment, so I've got a little bit of work to do to tidy this up. First up, I'm using this craft modelling knife. I'm just very gently chiseling away at the overflow of the baking powder and the super glue combined, effectively weld the part together. As you can see, I'm filing it down with a metal file, and I'm not putting a lot of pressure on it because there is, of course, slim chance that it could snap again and then I'd have to be back at square one. However, it held up good, and despite the filing and the pressure I was exerting on it, it didn't even bend. Now, it's not perfect, so I'm going to put a tiny little bit of filler in there to just hide where the base of the repair doesn't quite join exactly with the windscreen. I'm trying to put on the tiniest little blob here, but I think it might have dried out slightly. However, that's looking better than I thought it would. I'm happy with that. Whilst I'm here, I'm going to refill the little hole in the top there, the sign, the hole that aligns the sign in the correct orientation. And I'm going to try and just top up that hole in the middle there, because it was quite visible. So I've got to remember which base goes with which model. As you can see, they're looking very similar at the moment. I've undercoated them. And you can see there's a difference here in the evening news van. Not only has it got the sign on the door, it's also got a fuel filler flap at the back. And the tyre guard looks a little bit different, slightly different profile. Like I said before, I thought that the doors were a little bit wider on one, but in that picture they look quite similar. So I could have been mistaken there. So this I scooped out of the paint stripper. It's the original blue colour of the Bedford van, and the blue next to it there is off of a stirring stick out of this pot of Tamiya X4 blue. So I'm going to use that straight out of the pot because I'm not going to mix it with anything, because I think you'll agree, looking at the comparison on the kitchen towel there, it looked exactly the same as the paint that came off. For the other one, I was going to paint it with this matte white export paint and then make it gloss with the Tamiya clear, but I actually found some white that I didn't know I had on the shelf, so that's a good thing. So I'll be able to use Tamiya paint for both models. The white van is going to be painted white again. I might have said that already. And as I also said, originally I was going to make it a Hovis van, but I'm not. Today instead, I'm going to give this custom makeover a bit of an Australian theme to it. And I'm going to make it a Vegemite delivery van. Vegemite is a yeast extract spread that people put on toast and make sandwiches with. You over here in Australia, it's very similar to Marmite if you're in the UK. Maybe a little bit stronger, a little bit more salt in it. Not to everyone's taste, but the Aussies seem to like it. Sells well over here anyway. Now it's a 41-degree day today, and despite my best efforts, the inside of my hobby room is extremely warm. The first time I did this, the paint seemed to dry extremely fast and had a kind of a matte sandy finish on it. So I had to do it again, which is quite annoying. Here's the old tyres that I got off of the evening news van, and I thought I would, rather than clean them up, I will replace them with some new ones. So I'm digging in my little wheel box here to find 4 identical wheels that I feel will suit the purpose. So normally I'd have 4 wheels per makeover, but because this is a double whammy, I've got 8. So I'm using my special little 8 cocktail stick wheel rig to place the wheels on for painting after I've cleaned them. So I'm just using some hot soapy water here and a toothbrush. Just drying these off now and looking at them, making sure that the groove between the hub and the tyre is free of dirt. Sometimes it collects in there on these models, and even though you're cleaning them in hot soapy water, there can still be some gunge left behind. These ones came up okay though. So I'm going to give them a quick coat of this tyre wash, which is some thinned light grey with a touch of black in it. I've tried to make it matched the original colour of the wheels when they came out of the factory. Very time consuming this, the cleaning and the painting of the wheels, because you have to wait for them to dry, then you have to flip them over and do the other side. So here's the white van that I have painted and filled, and you can still see in this light very subtle remains of the holes in the roof are very slightly visible, which is annoying because I thought that I'd cover them particularly well. This blue went on lovely, nice shiny coat, nice thick shiny coat there. Thought it was a bit dark, but in hindsight it can't have been because I matched it with the paint that actually came off the model. It just looks a little bit darker when the decal isn't in position. So I cut one set of the axles off, so I've got to find replacement axles for that set. I'm pretty confident I've got some in here somewhere that are the correct diameter and a suitable length. That one there has got a lot of rust or old paint on it, so I can't actually get it through the wheel. Well, it looks about the right length, and the end of it, the rounded end, is a good size to suited to the model. Now I have a second one which is almost identical, except it doesn't have all the paint and gunge on the end. So I'm going to clean these axles up and use these to fix these wheels back on. There's a close-up showing how I'm comparing the ends as well to make sure that they are compatible. So the second model came with crimped axles. That was the one that I cut the axles off of. So now when I put my replacements in, I've got to crimp them. Just trying to make it as original as possible, I suppose, and also demonstrating a different method of that Matchbox used to secure the wheels on the early models. I have to put a lot of pressure on these axles to crush them. I don't know how they did it in the factory. They probably had some quick and easy way of doing it. Sometimes I have to crimp these more than once just to make sure that the axle is deformed sufficiently so it can hold the wheels on. So off camera I drilled and threaded those posts. Standard sort of practice to put the base back on with a little screw. So I'm doing that now. This is the one that I crimped the axles on. The other one, of course, I've got to go out to the shed and mushroom the ends over. Now, looking at this, I thought that's not good. There's a huge gap at the front there and looks ugly. What have I done wrong? I tightened the base up a little bit more, and I ended up actually having to retrieve the original wheels, clean them in a sonic cleaner that I have, and repaint them and fit them. So that was about a very long job. That I fitted the wheels, then I had to take them off and put the original ones back on again because it didn't sit right. So out in my shed, I'm now going to, some of you regular viewers have probably seen me do this a lot of times. Maybe you're a first time viewer. If you are, welcome to the channel. I hope you're enjoying it. And this is the method that I use to mushroom the ends of the axles. It's just a couple of nail punches in a drill press. Now that's a great result, that one. However, I kind of miscalculated the length of the axle. Way far too long, so I have to cut it off with some nips and go again. For these models I am manufacturing my own decals for a change. I don't do it very often. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Today I thought I'd have a shot at it because they seem quite simple to make. So I'll just get a reference photograph offline and I will isolate the decal using Paint Shop Pro. It's an old program. Found out today it's 25 years old. Maybe I should upgrade my software. Anyway, it does the job. And I also made some for the Vegemite van, the white one that's up and coming, the custom model. And there's a little jar of Vegemite to go on the board next to the door. So I'm hoping they're going to look pretty cool. This is just a test print of my template here to see that they're the right size and all the colours seem accurate. And here are the actual decals. So I've printed some on white backed decal paper and some on clear. So the Vegemite ones are on clear. That way when they go onto a white vehicle, the white should show through on the lettering. If you choose to use the wrong one for the wrong model, like this is clear on a blue model, you can see that the colour is not accurate because the colour of the model shows through the colour of the sticker. So that's why the Dunlop ones are white backed decal paper. Before I put the decals on, I thought I would just make that the final cherry on the top. So prior to doing the decals, I thought I'd just touch up all of the chrome highlights on these vehicles. Rather complicated headlight and grille assembly, which was quite time consuming to paint accurately. Thankfully I didn't make any mistakes. Although at one stage I did get a tiny little speck of silver paint on my finger, and when I picked the blue van up there was silver paint on it, and I was a little bit disappointed, but fixed it in the end, so no harm done. Okay, so that's the base back on. Those wheels that have been mushroomed in the shed, they're working well. Time to put these homemade decals on. So I'm going to start with the custom model first. And every time I do decals, people comment, you've got to use some softener. Mr. Mark's softener or something, decal softener. Now I've had two types. I've got this Tamiya one. I've got another one that's in a green bottle. And I never use them because I've never really needed it. I don't see what purpose it serves. I'm thinking it's just a sales gimmick maybe. But for today, for something different, I thought I'd use it and make you aware that it's available. Now, homemade decals are very hit and miss, and sometimes the product that you print on reacts differently to a professionally produced decal. This kind of stuck down real quick. Normally you have a bit more time to maneuver it around on the floating layer of liquid underneath the decal, but these seem to stick almost immediately and were a little bit troublesome because I had to sort of move them, keep wetting them down and move them until they're in the correct position. That little Vegemite jar's so detailed really for the size. Beautiful little sticker. Fits just right there on that sign on the door. Quite liking this. So I'm going to call this one the 42D Vegemite Bedford van. The evening news van was the 42A, and then they had the B, the C, but they didn't have a D, so this is the 42D Vegemite van. possibly a first, a unique, one-of-a-kind model. So this decal fixing product, you're supposed to, I read the label, it says wipe it on the model, place your decal on it, and then wipe the decal over with it and let it dry. So that's what I did. And like I say, the decal looks exactly the same as all the other ones I've done without the decal softening product. So it could be that it's only good if you're laying the decal over a complicated area of it. Say, for example, a wing of an aircraft where you might have panel lines and rivets. It's probably more suited to high-scale, detailed models, perhaps. And as always, I just finish off by rolling the decal over with a soft cotton bud, without dragging on it, of course, because it could move on the model if you drag. So I just roll it in my finger and thumb. You might have glimpsed a little fingerprint there. It's a result of my fingers being greasy. I noticed there was a lot of fingerprints appearing, but they wiped off, and it was all to do with my hands sweating and just me being me, I think. So let's have a look at the finished products. What do you reckon? This is what we started with, and this is what they look like now. I do like both of the models. The actual blue van with the orange Dunlop label on it, and the chrome details on the front looks absolutely marvellous. So simple yet beautiful little thing. And apparently the Dunlop stickers came out in yellow, and if you've got a yellow one, check in your collection. If it's bright yellow, they can be worth over $1,000. So be careful what you do with your cars. Always do a little bit of research before you start butchering them. So now I've got 3 of these Bedford vans in my collection, and I'm pleased with every single one of them. The Dunlop, the Vegemite, and the Evening News. A nice little fleet of delivery vans, and I think you'll agree, each one of them is a beautiful little toy. Now, Vegemite is an Australian product, an Australian icon even. And there's no one else in this family that's more Australian than Kevin. And he loves this stuff. And most mornings, before he starts on his eucalyptus program, he will indulge in a slice of toast, lightly buttered, with a thin smear of Vegemite. It's one of his favourite things. So I happened to catch him this morning making breakfast, and quite coincidentally actually, I was making a Vegemite van, so I thought I would film him and show you how delicious this product is. Doesn't it look beautiful? So appetizing. There he is. Hi, Kevin. Did you enjoy your breakfast? Yep. Good. Alright, thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Marty's Matchbox Makeovers. If you have, as usual, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends. But until next time, this is Marty saying thanks for watching, and see you next time. Goodbye. Holy sh**. Don't tell me I f***ed it up. I f***ed it up. I've got a tiny little